We are tracking a suspect. Male, geriatric, class 3 obesity. Known aliases: Kris Kringle, Saint Nick, Pelsnickel, the big guy. Every year he commits approximately 2.2 billion counts of breaking and entering. He consumes 300 million tons of sugar in a single night. He operates a surveillance state that would make the CIA jealous. He sees you when you're sleeping. That's not a carol, folks. That's a threat. Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about Santa. We all know the deal. North Pole, elves, reindeer, ho ho ho. It's the most established lore in human history. But have you ever stopped to ask, why? Why does a Christian saint have a flying sleigh? Why does he come down the chimney? And why are his pets named after German weather phenomena? The story of Santa isn't a fairy tale. It's a 1700-year-long game of telephone played by drunk sailors, Dutch immigrants, bored New Yorkers, and soft drink marketers. So grab your eggnog, strap in, and let's ruin your childhood. This is the real history of Santa Claus. We start our journey not in the North Pole, but in Myra, modern-day Turkey. The year is roughly 280 AD. Palm trees, sand, zero snow. Meet Nicholas. Look at this guy. Does he look jolly to you? No, he looks like he's about to audit your taxes. The historical Saint Nicholas was a bishop, and he wasn't known for giggling. He was known for fighting. He was a defiant, fiery defender of the faith who was actually imprisoned during the Roman persecution of Christians. There is a famous story, possibly legendary but too good not to tell, about the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. The church leaders were arguing about the nature of Jesus. A guy named Arius was speaking. Nicholas got so mad at Arius's heresy that he stood up, walked across the room, and slapped him in the face. That's right, the original Santa would not put you on the naughty list, he would just deck you. But he was also incredibly generous. The foundational story of his gift-giving is actually pretty dark. There was a poor father with 3 daughters. In those days, if you didn't have a dowry, you couldn't get married. The alternative was, well, it wasn't working at Starbucks, it was slavery. Nicholas, wanting to save them but remain anonymous, crept by their house at night and tossed bags of gold through the window. Legend says the gold landed in their stockings, which were drying by the fire. Boom! We have the stockings, we have the secret gifting, but we still have a skinny, angry Turkish guy. We have a long way to go. Fast forward 1,000 years, St. Nicholas is a superstar in Europe, but nobody loved him harder than the Dutch. They called him Sinterklaas. Sinterklaas is different. First of all, he arrives in mid-November by boat from Spain. Why Spain? Historical unclarity. Maybe because Spain controlled the Netherlands for a while? Maybe because they have good oranges. He literally brings oranges. But the key here is his transport. Sinterklaas didn't fly. He rode a white horse named Amerigo. Children would leave their wooden shoes out by the fireplace, filled with carrots and hay for the horse. If they were good, Sinterklaas would replace the hay with candy and toys. If they were bad, he'd leave a bundle of sticks. Or, in older versions, he would stuff you in a sack and take you back to Spain, which honestly sounds like a free vacation. Oh no, Santa, don't take me to a warmer climate with tapas. But Sinterklaas was still a bishop. He was serious. He was religious. To get to the Santa we know, we need to strip him of his religion and make him a party animal. While the Dutch had the bishop, the British had Father Christmas. Now, originally, Father Christmas had nothing to do with children, or gifts, or St. Nicholas. He was basically a personification of having a good time. He was the spirit of feasting. Think of the ghost of Christmas Present in A Christmas Carol. That giant guy in the green robe surrounded by food? That's him. Father Christmas was an adult mascot. His message wasn't, "Be good, children." His message was, "Drink ale, eat beef, and annoy your neighbors." So we have the gift giver, the chimney guy, and the jolly fat guy. Now we need to mash them all together. And where is the best place to mash up cultures until they become unrecognizable? New York City, baby! In the early 1800s, Christmas in America was a mess. It was basically a riot. It was like St. Patrick's Day in Boston, but with more guns. A group of New York writers, specifically Washington Irving, the Sleepy Hollow guy, wanted to domesticate the holiday. They wanted to make it safe for families. In 1809, Irving wrote a satire called Knickerbocker's History of New York. Irving took Sinterklaas and completely reinvented him. He stripped off the bishop robes, he gave him baggy Dutch breeches, he gave him a clay pipe, and most importantly, he made him fly. Irving described St. Nicholas riding over the treetops in a wagon, dropping gifts down the chimneys of his favorites. This is the big bang of modern Santa, but he was still missing his engine. Clement Clarke Moore, a professor of Greek literature, a serious academic. He writes a poem for his kids. He calls it A Visit from St. Nicholas. You know it as The Night Before Christmas. He takes Irving's flying wagon and upgrades it. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. Reindeer? Why reindeer? Moore lived in Manhattan. He did not see reindeer. Well, in 1822, reindeer were the exotic cryptozoology of the time. They were mysterious animals from the magical north. It would be like if I wrote a Christmas story today and said Santa was pulled by 8 velociraptors. It was just cool. Moore also named them, but look closely at the original text. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen. On Comet, on Cupid, on Dunder and Blixen. Dunder and Blixen, that's Dutch for thunder and lightning. Over the years, because Americans are bad at Dutch, it morphed into Donner and Blitzen. Here is the weirdest part of that poem that everyone ignores. Moore describes Santa as miniature. He calls him a jolly old elf, and he drives a miniature sleigh with tiny reindeer. The 1822 Santa wasn't a human-sized man. He was basically a gnome. He was action figure-sized. That's how he fit down the chimney. It solves the physics problem. We forgot the tiny part over the last century, which is why we now have to wonder how a 300-pound man fits through a 10-inch flue. So when did he get big, and when did he move to the North Pole? Enter Thomas Nast. He was the most famous cartoonist of the Civil War era. Nast drew Santa for Harper's Weekly, and he drew him big. He made him full-sized. He also gave him the red suit. Before this, Santa wore tan, green, or brown. But Nast had a problem. He needed to give Santa a home address. He couldn't put him in Europe, and he couldn't put him in New York. Nast chose the North Pole. Why? Because in the 1860s, nobody had been there. It was a blank spot on the map. It was international waters. It was politically neutral. It was the perfect place to hide a magical workshop. We're almost done, but we're missing one nose. People think Rudolph is ancient folklore. He's not. He's a marketing gimmick from 1939. The Montgomery Ward department store wanted to save money on coloring books. They asked a copywriter named Robert L. May to write a story. May was a bit of an outcast. He was small, shy, and his wife was dying of cancer while he was writing this. He poured his own feelings of being a misfit into this story about a reindeer who didn't fit in. He pitched the red nose idea. His boss hated it. His boss literally said, "A red nose? Robert, that implies the reindeer is an alcoholic. We can't have a drunk deer pulling the sleigh." May had to get an illustrator to draw a cute red nose to prove it wouldn't look like a barfly. It worked. They printed 2.4 million copies. Then May's brother-in-law wrote the song, then Gene Autry sang it, and suddenly the pantheon was complete. So let's review the dossier. Our subject is a Greek bishop born in Turkey who rides a Dutch horse but was reinvented by Washington Irving as a Flying Dutchman, given a German weather team by a Greek professor, moved to the Arctic by a Civil War cartoonist, and led by a red-nosed outcast created by a department store copywriter. It makes absolutely no sense. It is a Frankenstein monster of folklore, and that is why it's awesome. Santa Claus isn't one person, he's a greatest hits album of the last 2,000 years of human imagination. We took the best parts of history, generosity, magic, winter feasts, and flying animals, and rolled them into one big, red, cookie-eating ball. So this Christmas, when you look at that guy in the mall, remember, you're looking at a Turkish, Dutch-American, Arctic chimera. And if you sit on his lap, ask him about the time he slapped Arius. He loves that story. Thanks for watching. If you want to know why we put trees inside our houses, which is also a fire hazard, hit that subscribe button. We're doing that next week. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and stay suspicious.